It's a good day if you learn something.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's show. Today's guest is one of my personal all-time favorites and toughest quarterbacks to ever play the game. He was the NFL Most Valuable Player in 1976, NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 1976, First Team All-Pro 1976, Second Team All-Pro 1977, Pro Bowl in 1976, NFL Passing Yards Leader in 76, the George S. Hallis Courage Award winner in 1979. He was also an All-American at LSU in 1972, First Team All-SEC in 1972. Mr. Jones has also finished fourth in the Heisman Trophy balloting and was named the National Collegiate Player of the Year by the Sporting News that year. In 2016, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Please welcome Baltimore Colts number 7, Bert Jones. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Tony. How about yourself?
I'm a little winded by reading all your accolades.
Well, there are some things in there I didn't even know. So it's a good day if you learn something.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started, I'm a Wacoan, as you know, and you follow LSU sports still today, correct?
Yeah, but before you go anywhere with this kind of conversation, I want you to know that I live in Ruston, Louisiana, and Louisiana Tech has always had a historically great women's basketball team. So you're probably going to this Kim Mulkey thing, leaving Baylor and coming to LSU.
Right.
But just know that she's originally came to Louisiana Tech, but I'm proud that she's at LSU, and she did y'all a pretty good job yourselves.
She did a real good job. We missed her. So congratulations on Louisiana getting her. So
getting her back.
That's true. Getting her back. We sold her. You're right. So do you still follow LSU football?
Well, of course I follow LSU football. We have a new great coach. We've had great success. I'm anticipating wonderful things with Coach Brian this upcoming season.
I figure you did. So you grew up in a family where your father coached and he also played football. That must have been a great childhood to grow up in.
You know, it was just who we were and what we did. I didn't realize it was quite as unique and probably all the fun that it was. Of course, we never went on vacation because my father played 10 years in the pros for the Cleveland Browns and actually won 6 NFL championships and still holds an NFL record for scoring the most touchdowns in one game, and that's 6.
Right.
But after he retired, he came home, and I was 19. I was 11 years old when he went in and kind of became, or he was the offensive coordinator and kind of assistant head coach with Blanton Collier for the Cleveland Browns. So a requirement from him is that he really, back when he played, they were home by Thanksgiving and they left in August to go play. So the season wasn't year round like it is these days, or the 14 games when I played and now 16 games.
Right.
And so what we did in the summers, when Daddy went off to training camp, prerequisite to him being able to coach is that his whole family could come to training camp. So I'm one of 7 children, and depending on who was where and what was there. But I know that I, every year, went to the Cleveland Browns training camp, and my brother Bill, my brother Shump, my brother Ben, and Tom, we were all ball boys for the Cleveland Browns. So and from 1962 till 1969, 68, I would go to Hiram, Ohio, and we'd go, wash the socks and the jocks, and that was our summer job. And it was great. There were too many of us for the apartment we had, so they'd farm us out. One week I'd live with Gene Hickerson or Paul Warfield or Clifton McNeil and every day I would hide in Jim Brown's locker and he'd jump out and he'd act like he was scared. So, these were the people that grew up as a kid knowing and watching play football every day. I'd warm up Frank Ryan and Jim Nanowski, the quarterbacks for the Browns. And so it was a whole lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. Not everybody gets to do that. I tell you, that sounds awesome. So,
well, it
so
was. I thought it was just normal.
I'm sure you did. So who was your childhood hero growing up?
Well, of course, my father. We
sure.
have, but in and out of the house were Otto Graham, Dante Lavelli, Max Speedy, Marion Motley. These were all my daddy's cohorts and friends.
Right.
Paul Warfield when he came into the league. And so these were the people that I followed and tried to emulate.
Absolutely. Do you think growing up like that gave you an advantage?
I don't know if it gave me an advantage or a disadvantage, because when I never thought about college football, as crazy as that sounds, it was either the Ruston High Bearcats or the Cleveland Browns is what I was focused on. And then I have a train coming through. So in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to pause.
Okay, no problem.
So, I never really thought about college football. My brother played at Louisiana Tech, and of course I watched them. And then my father's, one of his dearest friends all of my life growing up was Coach Eddie Robinson. So we would go to Grambling and Louisiana Tech practice and games, and that was just part of the way we did things.
Gotcha.
But I never really thought about college. I thought about Ruston High and the Cleveland Browns. So when it came time for me to go to school, I said, well, where do I want to go? Let's see. My grandfather's in the Tulane Hall of Fame, both football and baseball. My father's in the Tulane Hall of Fame. So I went to look at Tulane, and it was a great school. And I kept saying, man, this would be great. Be a third generation Tulane Greenie, but they just weren't playing the competitive ball that I really wanted to play. Biggest arena, toughest competition is what I was striving for. And so LSU was the place for me.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So are you a Colts fan today? Are you a Ravens fan? Are you a Browns fan, or any fan at all?
Yes.
That's a good answer.
Of course, Baltimore is like a second city or second home, and I love Baltimore, and I watch the Ravens. And of course, Jim Irsay is a good friend of mine who's now the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. So I watch them. I kind of migrate to the people that I know in the league and watch them. Of course, Billy Belichick has been a long-time friend. He came in as an assistant with the Baltimore Colts when I was there, and we became good friends at that time. So, of course, I watched New England and all of his play. And then Archie Manning and I have been dear friends since college, and so I watched all of his children play, and watching his grandson right now go to 1 or 2 ball games in New Orleans every year, and watching him mature and turn into another great Manning player. So
he's a good one.
He's a great one. And so the answer to your question is yes. I keep up with the Baltimore team. I keep up with the Colts, and keep up with the friends that I have in the business.
In high school, did you play all the sports or just football?
My freshman year, I actually played all football, basketball, track, and baseball. My best sport probably was baseball. I was a pretty good pitcher and was, one of the starting rotation pitchers for Ruston High Bearcats. We won the state championship, but my mind said football all along. So, and I ran track mainly. Have you ever heard of the 5th man on the mile relay team? That was me. You get to practice and run and sweat and puke and do all the things, but you never get to run. But I ran the hurdles. I did a little high jump and did a little pole vaulting. And I think I threw the javelin about 4 or 5 times. And actually, I ended up winning the state in the javelin. But
really,
the main reason I went out for track was to increase my speed and agility for my football playing.
Gotcha. Well, how did you get the name the Ruston Rifle? Do you remember who gave you that name?
Oh, of course. Buddy Davis. Okay, Buddy Davis from the Ruston Daily Leader. I laughed. He passed away about 2 or 3 years ago. He was a dear friend all of my life, but he was a Ruston High student covering Little League baseball. And he later on, he said, "Bert, do you realize that you pitched for a year and a half in Little League and nobody ever got a hit? Now you hit a lot of players, but nobody got a hit." So, and he showed me. So he started out with no hit Jones, and then at Ruston High, he tagged me the Ruston Rifle, and it followed me to LSU, and then on to the pros.
On to the pros, yeah.
It might have had something to do with I enjoy the outdoors, hunting and fishing, and so oftentimes he'd see me leaving the practice field going quail hunting with my father.
Gotcha. I'm sure it had something to do with that rifle arm you got. So,
well, or pop gun, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, now going on to college, did you enjoy playing at LSU?
I had a wonderful time at LSU. Of course, I would have liked to have played a little bit different offense, but I had a great career, had a lot of fun, would do it again tomorrow if given the chance. LSU is a great school, has a fabulous following, and have made lifelong friends from the football team to the general population of the college ranks. So it was a great place. Still hold it dear and true to my life. You know, he had a different system. I would play about half the time. He always played 2 quarterbacks, and so some of the time I'd be in there and some of the times not. I was in there on more 3rd and longs than I was on 1st and 10.
Well, I've got some Ole Miss fans or some friends of mine. They want me to ask you about that 72 game. I'm not real familiar with that game. I understand.
You know, everybody gets real mad that we were able to run 3 plays in 8 seconds. That's not a big feat. What they really should be mad at is if they really reviewed the film, they'd probably see that Brad Davis was still juggling the ball when he went through the end zone out of bounds. But yes, we did beat them with 1 second on the clock. It was a great victory for LSU. And of course, at the time, Ole Miss was our primary rivalry. And so anytime you beat Ole Miss, it was fun.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with the portal today?
I am.
How do you feel about the portal?
I think it's okay. It's hard to get used to, but I recognize the value of a player being able to want to play where he wants to play. I lived in an existence in the NFL where there was no free agency. Matter of fact, the last NFL strike that I went through in 1982 was primarily to seek and gain free agency for players. And, if you were drafted by the team, you were with their property. Same way in college and the portal. If you're signed by the team, you didn't have a chance to get out and go somewhere else. I mean, just take, for instance, if, you're at wherever Archie's grandson's going, and you're a pretty good quarterback, the odds are you probably won't be playing that much. So just having the ability to move and get around and get an opportunity to play. And I'm also an advocate for paying college athletes. I don't know how you can establish parity among all of the leagues and all of the NCAA teams, but it was a tough job. I mean, I averaged 6 to 7 hours every day of my college career working on my athletic scholarship football program. Of course, I would have done it and did do it for nothing other than a good education at LSU.
Right.
But it generates tremendous amount of funds, and
absolutely.
And so
yeah.
I think that the players should benefit from that also.
Moving on to your pro career, do you remember where you were when you found out you got drafted?
Sure. I was at the house in Ruston, Louisiana. It wasn't any big deal. They just called me on the phone. Of course, it was kind of a unusual draft because I knew that Baltimore was trying to draft me, and Houston had the first pick, and they tried unsuccessfully all the way up till the day before the draft to trade for the first pick. They ultimately ended up trading with the New Orleans Saints for the number 2 pick. And then going back to that point, Houston had 2 first-round draft picks in the last 3 years when I was coming out into the draft, and Dan Pastorini and Wayne Dickey, I think. And so they had spent 2 first-round picks. And so Joe Thomas with the Colts just said, all right, y'all won't deal it, then you pick him. Then what are you going to do then? But by trading to the New Orleans Saints number 2 pick, it just kind of left them in the lurch. And they ended up drafting John Matuzak as the number 1 pick. And then the second pick became Baltimore's, and they picked me. But it was kind of funny. Ernie, of course, he told me the story. He said, I mean, we were to the 11th hour trading on this number 1 pick, and it just finally fell through, and they had slipped in and grabbed New England's pick. So go ahead, take it. We'll try one of your other quarterbacks.
I hear you. This is kind of a dumb question, but I'm just curious. What means more to you, being the NFL Player of the Year or being inducted into the Hall of Fame?
You mean in the College Football Hall of Fame? I'm not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
The college.
All of that. The things that I value the most as I reflect on my career are basically the people that I played with, the venues that I played in, the coaches I played for, the coaches I played against, and just the competitive spirit of the NFL when I played. When I came into the league, we ended up being 2-12 2 years in a row. The first year my playing was interrupted. We used to have a college all-star game, so I didn't have any training camp. I went to Chicago and worked with the college all-stars, and then we played the undefeated Miami Dolphins, and then that was the first preseason game at the time. And then from there, I came to Baltimore, so I'd missed all the training camp, didn't have any transition. So I didn't have the learning experience that I wish I'd had my rookie year. And we really weren't that good. We had a good draft in the players that we picked, but we were all just kind of greenhorns and hadn't matured. And then the next year was interrupted by a strike. And so once again, we didn't have any training camp or any preseason work. So that season was kind of a bad deal. And then they fired the coach halfway through the season. And then the third year, we got Ted Marchibroda. But to answer your question, those are wonderful things to be recognized with, or for. But the things that come to my memory are the players I played against, the players I played with, and the places I got to see, and just, being part of what I think is the greatest team sport, which is football. Absolutely.
Did you feel an ungodly amount of pressure being the one to replace the great Johnny Unitas?
John was a good friend from the time I came to Baltimore till of his passing. Did I feel a lot of pressure? I really didn't, because fortunately for me, I wasn't on the same team with John. The year they traded John to San Diego before I got to Baltimore, And the other quarterback is the guy that tapped on John's shoulders and said, "I'm coming in for you." And really, I was used to the game. I grew up,
Sure.
in Cleveland Browns training camp, and I knew so many great players and so many great things. And I always enjoyed watching John play and held him and still hold him in high esteem for his accomplishments and his tenacity on the field and his toughness on the field and just being the great player he was. But there was a gap, which took a little of the pressure off. And so anytime somebody would say, "Well, you're not John Unitas," I said, "Well, you don't realize this, but just mentioning John Unitas in the same sentence as me, you're complimenting me." So I'll take that compliment and move on. But no, I didn't really feel that pressure.
Okay. Well, I watched you play growing up. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of video of you in the last couple of weeks. It seems to me like you like to run just as much as you like to throw the ball.
I was a middle linebacker playing quarterback. I was about a half bubble off. I probably should have taken better care of myself, but I did enjoy running the ball. I mean, that added another dimension to our offense. And what I probably should have done earlier and learned how to do better is run out of bounds and slide, as opposed to taking a hit and doing all the craziness that I did.
You took some shots.
If Ann and Butch were sugar and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Do you have any long-term effects from all your injuries?
Yes.
Your neck?
Oh, well, I mean, nothing. I have all original parts at the time being. I have some rearranged. But the answer to your question is, because of my neck, it was such an acute and bad injury at the time. I didn't continue through the process of getting beat up and banged up and all the other stuff. So, I retired when I was 31, 10 years after playing pro ball. So the answer is yes. I mean, we all have issues. I have shoulder issues. I have knee issues, but I can still walk. I can still run if I want to. I can still push pole my flats boat, go fly fishing. I can still ride my horse, and I can do all the things that I want to do. So I don't have any regrets. But the answer is yes. We have. There's probably not a player that has come through the NFL that doesn't have some orthopedic issues going on.
Being a Southerner, how did you feel about playing in Baltimore? I mean, you stated you liked playing in Baltimore.
Baltimore is a great place.
I mean, the cold weather and.
It's. Remember, I kind of grew up in Cleveland too. I lived that schizophrenic life. In the winters, we would go to Cleveland and watch the Browns play. So I was familiar with that. But what I like, I love Eastern Seaboard. I've got one fly running around this office. I love Eastern Seaboard towns. They all have character. They all have old established ethnic neighborhoods, and it's just a diverse environment that I think is just a wonderful environment to be able to play in and experience. Their fans were loyal and still are. They know when to cheer and they know when to express their displeasure. And so I think Baltimore was a spectacular place to play.
Good sports town, yeah. What's the toughest place you ever played at?
What is the toughest place? You always had to wear your helmet going in and out of the stadium in Philadelphia. You might get hit in the head.
You got that right. You got that right.
Miami was a lot of fun. We'd go out and practice, and if you didn't keep all your footballs near, they would all disappear. You would kick, if you bounced one up in the stadium, they had a system where one kid would get it, he'd throw it to the next kid, he'd throw it to the next kid, and the last kid would throw it out of the stadium. That was all you had with it. but it was, the players that you played against and the teams is what made it tough. They're all good arenas and all good places to play.
Football-wise, what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment?
Football-wise, what is my greatest accomplishment? I think that helping mold and lead a team, and I'm not speaking bad about my co-players, but for the most part, we didn't have any real standout stars. But collectively, as an 11-man group, we were as competitive as any team as there was, as long as I was healthy. So I enjoyed that component, being just the guy that helped put all the players together. As it relates to success, I think, let's see, 73, 74. In 1975, coming off a 2-12 season, first year of Ted Marchibroda's coaching, we won our first game. We lost the next 4 games, and then we won 9 games in a row to come from last place in the NFL to AFC Eastern Division champions. And at that time was the biggest turnaround in the history. So that was a great run. And we had 3 great runs, and then hurt my shoulder and missed about a year and a half. Should have taken just a straight year out, but all of it was good.
Now, today you can hardly touch the quarterback. Do you think the quarterback is protected too much?
I do not.
You don't?
I do not. I do not think the quarterback is protected too much. I think it's an excellent rule. And you can just see the longevity of quarterbacks and their playing time and their success. And we all want to see offense. And we all want to see things move the ball up and down the field and have great defensive plays to combat it. So I think not only that, but receivers not being able to be hit down the field and blindside shots, all of these things are good for the well-being and the health of the players. And I think it's also good for the league because it makes a game that's more fun to watch.
True. Well, you've been quoted, not you personally, but some great people have quoted. John Riggins quoted you as being the toughest competitor he'd ever seen. And Coach Belichick said you were the purest passer he'd ever seen. How does that make you feel? That's got to be quite an honor.
You know, it is to receive an accolade by those tremendous, great football players, kind of sends chills up you. That those are compliments that touch you deep to your heart.
I agree. Well, it's time for our Fast Five. Are you familiar with the Fast Five?
I am unfamiliar, but teach me.
Okay, this is the last thing we do. I ask you 5 fun questions, and you just answer them and just give us your opinion on what you think. So it's time for the Fast Five. Do you prefer dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs.
I have 14 bird dogs, so I'm going to feed 14 dogs after this event.
14 bird dogs. Wow.
I'm down to 14, yes.
Do you prefer college football or pro football?
Yes.
It's okay. You like them both. What is your favorite fast food place to go to?
Fast food. Well, I come from a family that likes real food, so I don't know what the last. Would Chipotle be considered a fast food?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Well, I can get good fresh beans and lettuce and guacamole and things like that. I don't do the hamburger joints and things like that. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. What is your favorite kind of music that you listen to?
I have all kind of different genres that I used to listen to, from Hank Williams all the way up to you name it. I just saw Jimmy Buffett in concert this past weekend. And so
oh, wow.
All of these, I like it all.
And the last question is, do you prefer waffles or pancakes?
If it's just plain, I will prefer a waffle. If it is served with blueberries and bananas and yogurt and raspberries and a couple of grapes on the side, pancakes.
Okay. Well, that wraps up our Fast Five questions. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. I was trying to get you in and out fast, but thank you so much for all the memories. And you're just a class act, and we really appreciate all that you've done.
Well, thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And thanks all y'all for watching and tuning in. Until next time, peace out.